Hello again. So, it being summertime, I get to look out my window and I can see the skunks sometimes. Early morning, usually. Well, skunks are nocturnal, so it's going to be early morning. And I watch them rooting around in my yard, and they leave the garden alone, so I'm happy with that. And actually, they seem to leave a lot of stuff alone. I'm going to you, what are they doing out there? Um, and came to find, after watching for a while, they're basically rooting for worms or beetles or other insects. And got to thinking about this. Yeah, skunks are basically carnivores. So, of course, went online, looked up, what skunks eat. And they eat bugs, they eat small mice, birds' eggs, small birds. They hunt. They're carnivores. You don't think about that when you think of skunks. So I got to thinking about this. So RPG, and one adventure you come across a giant skunk or two giant skunks, depending on which tier you're playing in. And so you have to fight the giant skunk. And I'm pretty sure that the people who put this in the game, they were thinking, skunks got their, skunk musk or spray or whatever you want to call it. And so we can write this in, and every so often the skunk sprays, and you got to take a fortitude save, or you got the sickened condition, and you can't fight as well, and that's the skunk's advantage. I, on the other hand, now that I've been watching the skunks in my backyard, I've thought about this. It's like, yeah, skunks would attack a person if they were large enough. Most carnivores will attack anything that is huntable, if that's a word. Or basically, I can defeat this thing. So, a normal sized skunk isn't going to attack me because a normal sized skunk is about 1/20th my size. A giant skunk might attack me because it's a carnivore and it's big. I've mentioned this before in other videos. Animals will attack things based on size sometimes. So, giant skunk in the game, large animal. Large in the game is defined basically. Horses are large animals. Ponies are large animals. Elephants are large animals. So there's a size range to what's considered large. Humans are medium animals. So would a large skunk, a giant skunk, which is considered large size, attack a human? It's big enough, and we are meat. So yes, potentially a skunk would attack a human if it was big enough. And it was so the giant skunks probably would attack humans. Um, so, there's also other things. So, skunks have rabies, or skunks can carry rabies. Uh, they are actually the second or third highest carrier in the United States, depending on what website you check. So, it's raccoons, bats, and skunks, and some websites say skunks are second, and some say they're third. Most agree that of all the wild animals tested for rabies, 24.6% were skunks. So you think about that. If they are the third highest or third most likely to have rabies, and 24.6% of them are skunks, then that means like somewhere around 80% of all rabid animals are skunks, raccoons, or bats. And then the remaining 20% are all other animals that you might encounter. Back during the early part of the 20th century, if you saw a skunk, you shot it. Because there was a quote unquote rabies epidemic among skunks. I think part of that could be, we were just starting to study rabies and understand it better. And as we studied it, and we found they were higher in skunks than in other animals, so people just sort of, if you see a skunk, assume it has rabies. Uh, did see one article mentions that they sort of go through cycles, and depending on where you are in the United States, so there's like every 4 years there's a spike in the rabies of you know rabies among skunk. Uh, Other places it's every 20 years. Other places it's it's different. Depending on where you are in the United States. So there are times when skunks are more dangerous and or more likely to have rabies than other times. I did a report on rabies back in the 80s, and according to some of the references there, animals are tiered. So if you're in a higher tier, you can give rabies to anything lower than you. But if you're in a lower tier, you can't give rabies to anything higher than you. And I tried to, figure, okay, what tier are skunks in? And I could find no reference of this on the internet. And like I said, this is a report I did on the 80s. I was using references from the 50s, 60s, 70s. This is back when you had to look things up in magazines and periodicals and stuff like that. So it's possible that the idea that animals are tiered is, rabies among animals goes on tiers. It's possible that that's been debunked and it no longer exists. But still, the idea that skunks carry rabies more than most other animals, other than raccoons and bats. It sort of that might be where the whole tiered concept comes from. Is from that. I could be wrong on there. Um, so, like I said, might have rabies. Most skunks today don't have rabies, but like I said, they do apparently go through cycles where they sort of flare up from time to time. If you see a skunk out at daytime, it might have rabies. Basically, look for unusual behavior, and so the three big ones with skunks would be a if they you see them out in daytime, they're more likely to have rabies. Or you know they're nocturnal animals. Like I said, they will go out during the day. Rarely, so you can see a skunk out in the daytime, and it doesn't necessarily have rabies, but you know they're usually headed home or they'll run and hide from you or whatever. And that's the second one. Animals that just they don't seem scared of you. They don't necessarily attack. And fortunately, the whole idea, rabies, a rabid animal will automatically attack you. That's actually fairly rare. But they will be more curious about you. They'll just sort of walk up to you and look at you, and they don't run away like an animal normally would. That's another sign that an animal might have rabies. And then third one, interesting thing, because they don't act as normal. A skunk with rabies is less likely to spray than a healthy skunk, because again they don't do what they normally do. So they might still spray, but they're less likely to. That's I guess one good thing about a rabid skunk is it's less likely to spray you than a non-rabid skunk. But anyway, like I said, that's going off on rabies is sort of a side path here. Originally, this started with the idea of, yes, a giant skunk would attack a human. In fact, if it's hungry enough, it might attack you if you're very docile. You're asleep or something, a skunk might take a bite out of you just because it's hungry enough and you aren't a threat from its point of view. Unlikely, yeah, I've never heard of any cases of that, but at the same time, small animals do attack humans if the human is helpless or very docile sometimes. And so there's no reason why a skunk wouldn't do the same. So you got the cute little, flower from Bambi isn't as cute as you thought she was. That's it. Like I said, skunks can be cute creatures, but you gotta be careful, We think that because we're a lot bigger than them and they don't attack us. Mice and birds and other animals that they would attack, which they do attack sometimes because they want to eat them, won't think that they're as cute. That's it. just wanted to share that. Have a nice day.